And speaking of melanin, let's talk about it. So, in your notes, we're on to the melanin part, so that's on page 5, end of page 5. Now, instead of me telling you what melanin is, I've put in your notes 4 different scientists who have done the research with regards to melanin. They've broken down melanin, they've either written books or they've written papers, scientific papers, so they know about melanin, yeah? So the first scientist, his name is Dr. Timothy Moore. He wrote a book called The Science and Myth of Melanin, Dispelling the Myths. What did he say melanin is? Melanin is the biology of blackness. He said in humans, melanin is the primary determinant of skin and hair color. He says melanin has genetic, biochemical, and functional links to the immune system. It neutralizes oxidants. So that makes melanin an antioxidant and an antimicrobial. Found in almost every organ of the body and is necessary for the brain and nerves to operate, the eyes to see, and the cells to reproduce. He said it's also found in the stria vascularis of the inner ear. So you've got melanin in your ear. That's what helps you to hear. It helps to repair DNA in body cells. And then he says there are many types of melanin. Cosmomelanin. Cosmomelanin? You mean that stuff that we see in the sky is not darkness, it's actually melanin. And then he says there's eumelanin, pheomelanin, and neuromelanin, to name a few. So that's one scientist. But we can't just go by one scientist, because remember, science is logic backed up by evidence. We need as many scientists as possible, as much evidence as possible. Here's another scientist. His name is Dr. Carl Marriott. Yeah? So this is in your notes. Dr. Carl Marriott. What did he say melanin is? He called melanin the chemical key to life. And this is powerful because this is coming from a European, yeah? And there's a YouTube video of this guy explaining melanin for 15 minutes online. I suggest that at some point you watch it. So just type in his name and you see him talking about melanin for 15 minutes. Very powerful video. But he called melanin the chemical key to life. He says that melanin has a broad absorption spectrum. He says it absorbs thousands of times more electromagnetic radiation, which is photons. Anytime you see the word photons, that's to do with light, than chlorophyll. Now let's just examine that, yeah? Absorbs thousands of times more electromagnetic radiation than chlorophyll. Who was taught chlorophyll at school again? Everyone. Who was taught melanin at school? No one. But yet melanin is thousands of times more powerful than chlorophyll. So why are they not teaching us melanin in school? He says it exists in many tissues beside the skin. He says it's present in the developing fetus. He even says if it's not present, that's when you lose the baby. That's how important melanin is to life. And he says it's thought to be a master molecule for steering biological processes in the body, and the health effects are still being researched. So he said that it absorbs thousands of times more electromagnetic radiation. You now know that the electromagnetic radiation is to do with this, the electromagnetic spectrum, yeah? So this is all radiation. If you look at the wavelength there, a lower frequency is down here and the higher frequency is up there. You can see by the frequency, how frequently it goes up and down. It's getting more frequent. So these are high frequencies, these are the lower frequencies. So radio waves is a low frequency. Infrared is a low frequency. Then we're getting higher now. Ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays, yeah? And then this tiny portion, there's a tiny, tiny portion here called the visible spectrum, and that's the colors that we see with our naked eye. And back in school, they called it Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those are the colors that we see, or a combination of them. Why is that so important? Because look at what we can see and look at what we can't see. There's much more that we can't see compared to what we can see, yeah? Out there in the universe. Ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays, infrared, microwaves, radio waves. And these are all affecting us, yeah? But when it comes on to what we can see, that's the colors that we see. Now, to understand that, you need to understand how we see colors. So if we was looking at an indigo surface, a purple surface, and this is in nature, this is the universe we're talking about, in nature. If you're looking at an indigo surface, the reason why it looks indigo is because there's white light or light from the sun shining down on that surface. Now, the light from the sun is shining down all of the radiation, all of the light, but the surface is absorbing all of the frequencies except for purple. That's getting reflected back to your eye. So if you're looking at a purple surface, The reason why it's purple is because that's the color that's not being absorbed by the surface. Does that make sense? So all of the colors, all the other colors are being absorbed, the purple is being reflected, yeah? So that means that if you look at a green leaf, the reason why it's green is because that's the color that's being reflected back to your eye. That's the color that's not being absorbed. All of the other colors are being absorbed, which is sometimes hard for people to understand. When you're looking at something that is green, it's not actually green, it's all the other colors. It's the green that's being reflected back to your eye. All the other colors are being absorbed by it. Now remember, chlorophyll can absorb parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. Chlorophyll can absorb parts of it. But the scientists said that melanin can absorb thousands of times more. So guess what melanin can absorb? The whole spectrum. Melanin can absorb the whole spectrum. Now, is that a good or bad thing? Could be both. Could be both. Yeah, so it's good because you're absorbing, you could be absorbing like ultraviolet and infrared rays that are good for your body, especially from the sun, that other people are not absorbing. But how can it be a bad thing? Too much. You could be absorbing X-rays and gamma rays that other people can't absorb. So for example, when we go to the hospital and you have an X-ray, where's the doctor? The doctor's not even in the place with you. Like, they put the X-ray on you and then they go into some cabinet and close the door and then press the X-ray button because they understand how powerful X-rays are. That's high frequency, yeah? And if we're absorbing that as black people, that's gonna make us very ill, yeah? If we can absorb things that other people can't absorb, that's gonna make us very ill. Now that's interesting because melanin, if melanin can absorb all of this, that means we can be absorbing things from the environment that other people are not absorbing, yeah? So when we're eating foods, we might be absorbing things from that food that other people are not eating, not absorbing, yeah? That's what makes melanin so powerful. So this is how we see purple in the universe, in nature. This is how we see green in nature. But how do we see white? Well, white light, if you got the light from the sun and it shines down on a surface and that surface is not absorbing any of the colors and it reflects back all of them, that's how you see white light. That's how you see the color white. That's the reason why you can't look up at the sun for too long. Because you look up at the sun for too long, all of a sudden you might start seeing white spots and you might get a bit dizzy. Why? Because you're getting all of the light in your eye at the same time. It's too much, it's confusion. It's all at the same time, yeah? So anytime you see a white surface in nature, that's because it's not absorbing any of this and it's reflecting all of it. That's how you see white. So how do you see black in nature? It absorbs everything. Black absorbs all, yes.
Does that mean that white people see things different to the way we see it?
That would make the science make sense, yeah. That would mean that as black people, because remember, melanin's in your ear. If you go by those scientists, melanin's not just in your skin, it's in your organs as well. That means that you could hear things that other people can't hear. You could see things that other people can't see, yeah? You could feel things that other people can't feel. Now, if that is true, think about there's statistics that show that a lot of our black men are in mental institutes, yeah? They're crazy. Why are they crazy? He said he saw something that weren't there. Or they say they could hear things. Or they felt something, or like they're crazy. Well, maybe it's just their melanin feeling things that the other people can't feel, yeah? So look at this. Black absorbs all, and when it absorbs all, it creates heat. Keep that in mind as we go on. Black absorbs all, and it creates heat. So if you see something red, it's because the red is being reflected. If you see something white, it's because all of the colors are being reflected. Yeah?
Sorry.
Yes.
When you said about, obviously, black people may be absorbing more things, just a thought about 5G.
Yeah.
With those frequencies and
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about it. I mean, I don't know, I don't understand, but could it mean it would have a detrimental effect on, you know, our people?
What you need to understand is when it comes to this, The higher the frequency, the more we as black people will absorb it. Because again, that's the melanin absorbing it. So remember, it started with 2G, then 3G, then 4G, now 5G. If you go on YouTube and just type in 5G and you see they've done 5G in countries, and when they put up the towers, birds started to drop out of the sky, dead on the floor. Like 5G is high frequency, yeah? And again, us with our melanin, we'll absorb it when other people won't absorb it, yeah? So I always tell people, like, even this is not 5G, but even with this, I don't put this close to me, because women, if you put this by your breasts and that, all of a sudden, breast cancer, or men in your pocket, and then all of a sudden in your 50s, you got prostate cancer or whatever. Like, I try to keep this as far away from me as possible. Like, people know when they call me, that my phone's far away from me. Like, I'm all the way over here, and my phone's on like loudspeaker. I'm like, yeah, well, go on. Yeah, man, I'm there, man, bro. What's going on? Now, speak up. Because I'm not putting that by my head. Do you get me? I'll put that by my head with all of that radiation. In my 50s, 60s, I find out I've got a tumor or something. Because these things are going to affect black people more than anyone. And that's because of the melanin and what it's absorbing. And that's not my opinion. That's due to scientists like this guy.
Can I see his slide?
No, it's in your notes. It's in your notes. Because all of this is in your notes. All right. So black absorbs all of the light frequencies. All right, here's another scientist. His name is Dr. Richard King. He's written loads of books on melanin. What did he say about melanin? So he said it's the key to freedom. He said there are 4 major broad subsections of the melanin life ocean. Cosmic melanin, so he agreed with the other scientists, planetary melanin, plant kingdom melanin, which he calls chlorophyll. Plant kingdom melanin is chlorophyll, and in animal kingdom melanin. He said it's found throughout the entire body of all humans in their skin, eyes, endocrine glands, blood, heart, muscles, lungs, gastrointestinal tract, kidneys, sexual organs, and the brain. So it's not just skin. It's literally all throughout our body, yeah? And then he says melanin in the brain is called neuromelanin. Within the human brainstem, there are 12 centers of black melanin, including the locus coeruleus and the substantia nigra. Substantia nigra, this is the reason why I like to break down words when I'm studying science, because nigra, what does that mean? Black and substantia, substance, substantial, large substance. You've got some large black substance in your brain, and it controls the way you think, and it controls the way you move. I don't know. Like, again, substantia nigra is the scientific term, yeah? And you know how important this is? If it starts to fade, that's when you start to suffer from neurological diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So if you were to look inside of your brain, this is just a cross-section of your brain. The substantia nigra is in this part here. So we're looking like down the brain through like a bird's eye view. And look, it's full, it's black, and it's full of, this is in your notes, it's full of melanin sites, or melanin skin cell sites, which they call melanocytes, and it's full of dopamine. Should be in everyone, but again, like a lot of this information is hidden. So you won't find this in the scientific book. So if you say, is this for everyone? I'd have to look at a science book that they've created and see that they talk about it, but they don't talk about it. There's like a melanin code of silence in science. No one talks about melanin. Scientists, not out in the public. They'll talk about it amongst each other. They actually have meetings. There's melanin meetings. I don't know if you know this, but there's melanin meetings that the best scientists in the world come to every couple of years. I think it's every couple of decades. And they sit down and they discuss melanin. And at those melanin meetings, no one has melanin. Literally, there's never a black person at those melanin meetings. Yeah? So trying to get this information out of their science books is hard because they don't talk about melanin. So substantia nigra, and it's filled with dopamine. Dopamine is very important because dopamine controls the way, obviously, our pleasure, and it controls the way we move and think as well. Here's the last scientist. So his name is in your notes. His name is Dr. Arturo Solis Herrera. He's a medical surgeon, ophthalmologist, whatever that says, and a pharmacologist. Now he said, this is what, he wrote a book about it. He said, melanin is to the animal kingdom what chlorophyll is to into the plant kingdom. He called melanin a super chlorophyll due to its advantages over regular chlorophyll. Exists in many tissues beside the skin, is present in developing fetus, and there's many types. So all of the scientists, they seem to be agreeing with each other. But check this out. This scientist wrote a book about it called The Human Photosynthesis. The human photosynthesis. What does photosynthesis do? Let's remind ourselves. The chlorophyll captures light energy, and then what does it produce? Oxygen and glucose. So the chlorophyll, photosynthesis, is using carbon dioxide and water in the presence of light, captures the light energy, and produces oxygen and glucose. It uses the glucose to charge itself up, and then it releases the oxygen into the air. This guy wrote a book called Melanin is the Human Photosynthesis. So what is he trying to say? That melanin can do what the plants can do. If that's the case, do you understand that we wouldn't need food? You know what's interesting as well? Like I'm from Jamaica. When I go back to Jamaica and I'm out in the sun, yeah, I don't eat as much. I don't think about food. I literally don't think about food. It's when I go inside or all of a sudden or I'm cold, I think about food a lot. This guy's saying melanin is a human photosynthesis. Interesting. All right. So those are the 4 different scientists that talk about melanin. Now let's go over some melanin myths, because there's a lot of myths behind melanin. So let's start with Dr. Sebi, because I don't know if you know, but Dr. Sebi said there's no such thing as melanin. Listen.
We were talking before the camera started rolling. What is melanin and what is carbon? Tell us about those 2 minerals, or whatever they are.
Melanin is not a mineral.
Okay.
Melanin is a word that was used to describe a certain biological function. But that particular identification or category or thing, melanin, is a European identification of what they think activates those neurons in our body that makes us black. But when you break down our body, our biological structure, into what we would have to put it in, which is chemistry, biochemistry, melanin has no place. It's not to be found. What is found in the body that is attributed to melanin is carbon. Carbon not only determines the quality of life in black folks, carbon determines the quality of life in every living plant that exists that is natural. If carbon is absent, there's no life.
So he says it's carbon, yeah? Now again, when I'm listening to people, I don't believe a word they say. I do my own research. But remember what he said about acids and alkali. He said we need an alkaline diet and acids are bad. But then I had to explain to you why he said that, and then it started to make sense. We are acidic, we have an acid structure, so we need an alkaline fuel source. Yeah? So it's not that acids are bad, it's just because we're an acidic structure, we need an alkaline fuel source because opposites attract. Yeah? So when he says that there's no such thing as melanin, if you look at the periodic table of elements, melanin is not on there. So he's actually correct. Melanin is not on there. What is on there though is carbon. Yeah? And if you was to look at the molecular structure of melanin, now before I even show you the molecular structure of melanin, just as a recap, what are the 4 main elements on the periodic table? What's number 1? Oxygen. What's number 2? Hydrogen. What's number 3? Carbon. What's number 4? Nitrogen. Those are the 4 most important elements in life when it comes to us as human beings. Look what melanin is made up of. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. Now you understand why he said it's just carbon, because if you look at the molecular structure of melanin, it's got more carbon than anything else. You see that? It's got more carbon than anything else. So when he says it's just carbon, it literally is just carbon. And here's why what he says makes even more sense, yeah? Because oxygen is a gas. So it doesn't have a color, does it? Nitrogen is a gas. So it doesn't have a color. Hydrogen is a gas. It doesn't have a color. The only thing that has a color is carbon. What color is carbon? Black. So the only thing that we can pertain to us as melanin, giving us our color, is the carbon. Yes, melanin is made of hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen as well, but they have no effect on the color. It's the carbon. So when he says there's no such thing as melanin, it's carbon. Now you understand why he's saying it. It actually is carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. But if we're talking about the blackness, we're talking about one thing, and that's carbon. And what's interesting, if you was to look at the molecular structure of carbon, you know, the protons, the neutrons, and the electrons, like the atomic structure of carbon, you'd find that carbon is made up of 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons. 6, 6, 6. Where have I heard that before? This is why we need to understand science, because again, the science is the jargon. If we don't understand the jargon, we'll get people telling us we're the devil. That's exactly what they're telling us, but we don't know where that comes from. They're talking about you, yeah? So that's one myth out of the way. When he says there's no such thing, now you understand why he says that, yeah? There's no such thing. Well, there is. He says carbon. Yes, it's carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. All right. The next myth. A lot of black scholars say that melanin is produced where? In the pineal gland, in the brain. Yeah? So if you look at the pineal gland, it's in the middle of the brain. Going back to ancient Kemet, it looks like the eye of Haru. Yeah? They call it the third eye. Yeah? Your intuition, your enlightenment is because of this third eye, the pineal gland. And a lot of people say, yeah, melanin is produced in the pineal gland. Now, not quite, not from a scientific perspective. There's what they call like melanin hormones that help the production of melanin, but melanin as such is not produced there. So let's break down the pineal gland, which they call the third eye. Now, this is in your notes as well. The pineal gland is the first gland developed in your body. There are 5 things that the pineal gland is responsible for. Inner eye, sensing light and darkness. Biological clock, it tells our bodies when to do its functions. Pacemaker, sets the pace or rhythm for the body. Compass, helps us orient ourselves. And 5, the production and secretion of 2 biologically key hormones, which is melatonin and serotonin. And they work in inverse of each other. So melatonin gets released at night, serotonin gets released during the day, yeah? And these, again, are very important for our biological clock because melatonin, when it's released at night, it's going to help to repair things in the body. So if you're not getting to sleep when you should be, things are not getting repaired, yeah? That's how important melatonin is. Serotonin is good for being active, being alert, and that sort of stuff. So if you're not getting enough serotonin, you could fall into depression, anxiety, and all that sort of stuff. Very important, powerful stuff, this circadian rhythm. And again, we mash it up by being on this. But this is not only going to mash up the melatonin and serotonin, but look at all of these other hormones that get released in the brain, yeah? And they all rely on melatonin. So melatonin is like the regulator of all of these hormones that get released in the brain. So melatonin becomes one of the most important hormones in your body. And we're going to break down what melatonin does right now. So this is in your notes as well. Functions of melatonin: boost memory. Dream sleep helps you get into that REM sleep, that deep sleep. Organizes our biological, mental, and spiritual system. Regulates hormone release, especially for reproduction and sexual maturation. Slows down aging, so melatonin is an antioxidant. Regulates the immune system and repairs damaged cells at night. And also protects skin cells from UV damage and regulates skin pigmentation. Protects skin cells from UV damage and regulates skin pigmentation. So let's go inside, quick biological lesson on your skin. So these are the layers that they tell us about. The subcutaneous layer, the dermis, and then the epidermis is what you can see, yeah? What they don't tell us about is melanocytes that are inside of the dermis. Melanocytes, yeah? Melanocytes, these are the sites in the dermis that produce the melanin, yeah? And this is from Cancer Research UK. So they say melanin protects skin from sun damage. That's what Cancer Research UK say. They say that ultraviolet radiation causes DNA mutations, burns that lead to cancer and wrinkles. Skin color depends on melanin production, not the number of melanocytes, yeah? Now, this is what Cancer Research UK are saying. What they don't tell you is how important the sun is for activating this. It's actually a cascading effect, and this cascading effect can be shown on page 8. Page 8 of your notes, it shows you how melanin is produced. So, when you get sunlight through your eyes, that will activate your pineal gland. Your pineal gland then releases serotonin during the day. That serotonin during the day gets converted to melatonin at night. That melatonin activates your pituitary gland to release MSH. MSH stands for melanocyte stimulating hormone. The melanocyte stimulating hormone stimulates the melanocytes to release melanin. So look at the process that your body goes through for you to get melanin, yeah? Now here's why this is so important, because if we don't go through this process, not only does our body not produce melanin, then the melanin that it does have is weak, yeah? So how do we as black people mess up this process? Well, sunlight through the eye, how do we do it? Well, black people during the summertime, we wear shades, yeah? Black people during the summertime, we wear shades. So you've already messed up the process, because the sunlight is supposed to go through your eyes. So as soon as you put on shades, you've messed up the process. So that's the sunlight part. Serotonin and melatonin. We mess up that by being indoors during the day, yeah, and going out at night. We're literally doing the opposite. Like, we're indoors during the day, we should be indoors at night, and then we go out at night. That's when we rave and party and all them sort of thing there, yeah? So we mess it up, because again, the body's supposed to go through this, and then it activates the melanocytes to release melanin. And the melanin, so that means sunlight charges up our melanin. And if we don't get it, then our melanin's weak. And how can we prove this, that the melanin is weak? Well, I've heard black people start complaining about the sun.
Yes.
I've heard black people say, it's too hot. Oh, do you know I got burnt the other day? Do you know this and that? Because our melanin is so weak these days. Hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, not even light-skinned black people were complaining about the sun. But now you got dark-skinned black people saying, it's too hot, I got burnt, I've got to put on sunscreen, I got to do this, I got to do that. Because our melanin is weak, we don't understand it's a process, and we mess up the process nearly every single step of the way, yeah? Now, going back to the scientist, the Dr. Carl Merritt. Remember I told you he's got a 15-minute video on YouTube where he breaks down melanin. Now, I'm just going to show you a little clip from that video, from that YouTube video. I just want you to listen to what he says right at the end. I don't know if you're going to catch it. See if you can catch what he says right at the end of the clip.
Melanin's role is, in fact, even being rethought in medicine, that, you know, is it really something that just absorbs sunlight, or does melanin have a role in the immune system in the body? And is it really more of an antimicrobial kind of defense against bacteria? Because melanin is found throughout all the animal and vegetable kingdom. And melanin is the very thing that you have in your hair and in your skin that gives you the color. Whether you're more red, whether you're more brown, whether you're tan, whether you're not, is because the melanin produced by your skin in the parts of the cell called melanocytes, or the pigment of your skin. And some people who have a condition called vitiligo, where their skin looks blotchy and they have white patches, they don't make this pigment. When you're exposed to ultraviolet radiation, you make more of it. When you're exposed to ultraviolet radiation, you make more of it. When you're exposed to ultraviolet radiation, you make more of it.
I don't know if you caught what he said at the end there. I don't know if you caught it. For the people who didn't catch it, he said, when you're exposed to ultraviolet radiation, you make more of it. In other words, ultraviolet rays increase melanin. So who's teaching us to put on sunscreen then? If you put on sunscreen, it blocks ultraviolet radiation. So who's that going to affect the most? Why are we getting taught to put on sunscreen and block the thing that's going to increase our melanin? Total confusion, yeah? So this is from Cancer Research UK. When it comes to UV radiation, there's 3 types. There's UVA, UVB, and UVC. Now, UVC rays are the shortest waves, usually do not penetrate the Earth's ozone layer. So they get reflected back into the universe. So we don't usually get any UVC on the planet, yeah? But we get UVB and UVA. UVB rays, these are the longer waves that reach the skin surface that can cause tanning, burning, and skin cancer. Remember, this is Cancer Research UK, yeah? And then UVA rays, even longer waves that can penetrate deep into the skin surface, causing DNA changes that can result in skin cancers and age the skin. Now, I've got a question. For who? Because there are different types of melanin, yeah? There are different types of melanin. Like the scientist said, there's eumelanin and there's pheomelanin, yeah? Eumelanin, this is in your notes, comes in black and brown, and pheomelanin comes in red and yellow, yeah? So there's different types of melanin. So this is from Cancer Research UK. It says, am I at risk of sunburn? Do I have to worry about sunburn in the UK? So this is Cancer Research UK. So instead of going through all of it, let me just highlight just one part of it. And it's talking about UV rays here. It says, other things that affect the strength of UV rays are the time of year. The highest risk months in the UK are April to September. Near the equator, there are strong UV rays all year round. Yeah? So just remember that. UV rays, and for us, we need UVB. Black people, we need UVB rays for our melanin and for vitamin D. The highest risk months in the UK, and they call it risk months. The highest risk months in the UK are April to September. That's when UV rays are at their strongest, yeah? Near the equator, though, there are strong UV rays all year round, yeah? Now, they tell us that ultraviolet rays cause skin cancer. If that's the case, who should have the most skin cancer? Those near the equator. But those near the equator are black people, and they don't. So obviously UV rays don't cause skin cancer. Not for us anyway. Yeah?
That's why they have it in Australia. All the white Australians are the ones that have the highest. They're dying off like anything.
That's it. So we need to think about when we're reading this stuff, who are they talking about and who are they talking to? Yeah?
But the Aboriginals are still there.
There you go. And then look at this part. Because we need the UVB rays for vitamin D, yeah? We need the UVB rays for vitamin D. So it says, who may not be getting enough vitamin D? People who are most likely to be lacking in vitamin D include people with naturally brown or black skin, for example, people of African, Afro-Caribbean, or South Asian family origin. Now, this is the reason why you need to understand language, because again, break it down. Who's not getting vitamin D? People with naturally brown or black skin, melanated people. For example, African, melanated. Afro-Caribbean, melanated. South Asian, melanated. So who's not getting enough vitamin D? Melanated people. Now, why is that? Because they tell us that melanin blocks sunlight. It doesn't. It slows it down. It slows it down. And if that's the case, that means we need to be out in the sunlight longer to get the maximum amount of vitamin D. Yeah? Slows it down. Maximum amount of vitamin D. And the way I like to explain this is think about your digestive system. Yeah? Your digestive system, when you eat food, it slows down the process of assimilating the food because it has to extract what it needs from what it doesn't need. Yeah? So your digestive system, when you eat something, it's going to be like, okay, we need that. We don't need that. Okay, we got some electrons from that. All right, I don't know what that is. All right, put that into the colon, make him excrete that. So that's what your digestive system does. That's what your melanin does with sunlight. Because remember, you're getting all this radiation from sunlight. Melanin is like, okay, we need that type of light. Okay, let's get rid of that light, and slows it down. But if you don't have the right type of melanin, it might just go straight in, and that could be dangerous. Think about the difference between eating fruit and juicing it. You eat the fruit, it slows down the process. You juice it, the sugar goes straight into your bloodstream. That's dangerous, but it's the same thing, yeah? So this is sunlight. Look what we're getting from sunlight. Visible, infrared, UVB, UVA, and they're telling us that the UV is the part that damages. All right, now I know I've gone over, but there's only 10 minutes left, so I just want to break down the two different types of melanin. So look at this, UVB and UVA. Again, this is Cancer Research UK. It says that the UV rays damage DNA, yeah? But we need all of this, because remember, we rely on the sun for our sustenance, yeah? We rely on the sun for our energy. So these are the two different types of melanin. And again, this is in your manual, in your notes. There's two different types of melanin, pheomelanin and eumelanin. Now we'll go through this in more detail next week, but basically it starts off with an amino acid called tyrosine. Tyrosine gets converted into something called dopa. This is the melanocytes, in the melanocytes. Tyrosine gets converted into something called dopa. Now what does that sound like, dopa? Dopamine. That sounds like dopamine. Yes, that's because we as black people have more dopamine. And if dopamine is the pleasure neurotransmitter, and dopamine's associated with addiction, if you've got more dopamine, you're more likely to become addicted to things. That means us as black people, if we get on drugs, we're going to become more addicted to the drugs than someone else. Yeah? If we eat junk food, we're going to become more addicted to that junk food than other people. Yeah? Yes.
When we have certain diseases like autoimmune, we have the more aggressive strain because
Again.
it attaches itself to our...
Exactly. Dopamine, melanin attaches itself to things.
Yeah.
If we get addicted to phones, we're going to become more addicted than everyone else. Yeah? That's the reason why social media is us. We make social media hot. Like Black Twitter and that sort of stuff. It's us that's blowing up this thing because we're so addicted to it. Yeah? Instagram, all of that stuff. So dopa, and then that goes on to dopaquinone. Then there's chemical reactions, and the only difference between pheomelanin and eumelanin is the difference between cysteine and, it's not on here, but selenium. Eumelanin is more selenium based, selenium and copper based, eumelanin, and that comes in black and brown. Pheomelanin comes in red and yellow, and it's cysteine based. Cysteine is an amino acid, and it's sulfur. So pheomelanin is sulfur based, and eumelanin is selenium based. So if you was to look at it, this is it. Eumelanin, pheomelanin. Again, why don't they teach this in schools? Everyone has melanin. Everyone. Black, white, Chinese, whoever you are, you have melanin. It's just the different types. You either have black or brown, red or yellow, or a combination of the two. Which one do you have the most? How would you know? Look in the mirror. Just look in the mirror and see which one you've got. Yeah? You can have a combination of the two. If you're mixed race, you've got a combination of eumelanin and pheomelanin. Yeah? So remember, eumelanin is black and brown, pheomelanin is red and yellow. Now, eumelanin, we depend on the sun. So guess what vitamin we need the most of? D. Vitamin D. Eumelanin, we need more vitamin D because we get that from the sun. Pheomelanin, they need more vitamin A. So pheomelanin, you need more vitamin A. Now, everyone needs vitamin A, but if you're pheomelanin dominant, you need more vitamin A. Everyone needs vitamin D, but if you're eumelanin dominant, you need more vitamin D. Yeah? And you know what's interesting about this? Because they like to try and make us all the same, like, oh, we're all one race, the human race, and we're all the same. But if you go with science, if a eumelanin dominant person gets too much vitamin A, it can make them sick. If a pheomelanin dominant person gets too much vitamin D, it can make them sick. And we already know this because where do you get vitamin D from? The sun. Europeans who have more pheomelanin, guess what's happening to them? Skin cancer, all this sort of stuff. They're getting too much of something, yeah? So if you get too much of something that is good for the other person, it could make you sick. Now, don't go by what I said. Do your own research. But look at this. If you was to type in how to increase your melanin online, there'd be various websites, and they'd all say the same thing. They'd say things like this: increase vitamin A. So this one says, to protect our skin and hair from sunlight, you can eat food nutrients such as vitamin A. Yeah? This one says, eat animal and plant-based foods containing vitamin A. Why are they saying vitamin A? Because who wrote this? Because it's not for us. This is written by someone who has pheomelanin. So they understand their own science. They're saying we need vitamin A, so we need to eat more vitamin A. But I didn't type in how to increase pheomelanin. I just typed in how to increase melanin. So anyone that's searching for this, they're going to think, oh yeah, vitamin A. I need more vitamin A. So what's high in vitamin A? Vitamin A foods contain, foods that contain vitamin A, whole and skim milk, cheese, eggs, beef, chicken liver.
All A's are all reds.
Reds, yes. A's are reds and yellows. You know, to match the red and yellow melanin. A's are reds and yellows. So look at this. Carrots, tomatoes, red peppers, apricot, papaya, mango. What does it say here? Carrots, tomatoes, melons, egg yolk. It's interesting, but it's so simple. Science is simple. Vitamin A foods are red and yellow foods. Vitamin A foods or red and yellow foods are going to be high in vitamin A. That's going to be good for pheomelanin. We need more vitamin D. Yeah? The darker colors. But look at this. If you've got a combination of the two. So this is Rachel True. She's an actress. She's mixed race. And look, So she's got pheomelanin and eumelanin, but she's getting both. Carrots are going to be high in vitamin A, but then she's out in the sun getting vitamin D. So she's getting both, and look how amazing she looks. Because that's what happens when you top up your melanin. You literally don't age, because remember, melanin is an antioxidant. It's going to donate the electron so the free radicals don't damage your cells, yeah? Now, I remember when I was learning this stuff, because I didn't understand the science, I was just reading what they told me to take. So I was like, oh, okay, I need carrot. When I started to juice, I had a skin issue that I tried to get rid of, and I started to juice, and I was reading all of these juicing books, and every juicing book was telling me, drink carrot juice, drink carrot juice. So I bought so much carrot juice, like raw carrots, and I juiced all of them. I was drinking them for a week or so, and guess what? It made my skin condition worse. Why? Well, Dr. Sebi said that carrots belong on the acid side of life. Dr. Sebi said that carrots are hybrid. In other words, they're not natural, yeah? So, it's not that carrots are bad, it's just I took in way too much vitamin A for my eumelanin, yeah? So I need stuff for my eumelanin, because if I get what I need for my eumelanin, I literally don't age. You literally don't age if you get the right things for your melanin. Like, you'll see things like this. Who's the mum? You don't even, like, it's hard. Like, which one's the mother? It's tough. This is what happens when we take care of our melanin. And here's a question. Which one's healthier? Which one do you reckon is healthier? Left or right? Left. Well, that's interesting, because now, remember, we talked about health, and I asked you, what is holistic? Holistic means whole, looking at the person as a whole and that sort of stuff, yeah? So how do we know this person's healthy? Well, she's got natural hair. Cool. Fair enough. This person's putting chemicals in their hair, and makeup is chemicals on your face. However, what if this person is increasing their powers? In other words, what if this person is on a plant-based diet, getting lots of oxygen, lots of water, lots of exercise, lots of rest, and lots of sunlight, and this person isn't? You can't tell, yeah? So that's how we have to start looking at health holistically, yeah? Because every time I show this, people are like, oh yeah, this one's healthier, this one's, why? Because she's got natural hair. Because she's got natural hair, that means she's healthier, yeah? Like, this is the thing when it comes to this natural hair craze. What products are you putting in your hair? What natural hair products are you putting in your hair? Because the people who make these products are the same people who are making those products. They're literally saying, oh, everyone's going natural now. Okay, let's make some natural hair products and then put you on the cover so you think it's for you. Again, that's so large putting bread on his beef. Like, I will get you. Do you get what I'm saying? So we got to start looking at health holistically, yeah? But hair is important. Hair is important, and black hair, eumelanin hair is important, because look at this. They're starting to use your hair for powering up things. So teenager invents 23-pound solar panel that could be the solution to developing world's energy needs, made from human hair. Now look at the teenager that did this research. So it's not a black person, yeah? But he went on to say, I realized that melanin was one of the factors in conversion of energy. So everyone's studying melanin except for the people who have it, yeah? So the question is, are you charged up? If people are using your melanin to charge things up, are you charged up? The person who has melanin, are you charged up? Yeah? This is what you said charges you up. Are you charged up? Because your melanin is so powerful. Your melanin is like a battery, and the sun is your charger. The sun is your charger. It charges you up.
They put it on the space shuttle to go up into orbit.
That's it. They have to put it on the space shuttles for it to even go out into space, yeah? They coat it in melanin. So this is how important your melanin is. The sun charges it up like a battery. Now, I can't just say that without evidence, because my definition of science is logic backed up by evidence. So I started to do some research, like, is this true? And in the UK, I started to research when, you know, black people started to rise up, should I say, uprisings. Some people will call it riots. And I looked and I wanted to see when we rioted. And I found something very interesting. Look at this, riots in the UK. Brixton riots were April 1981. Chapeltown riots were July 1981. What's the period? April to September is when we get our UVB rays. April to September is when UVB rays are strongest. Brixton riots was April. Chapeltown riots were July. Toxteth riots were July. Handsworth riots, September. Brixton riots, September. Chapeltown riots June, and London riots a couple years ago was August. All between April and September, when the UVB rays are the strongest and we're getting charged up from the sun. Is it just us? What about in America? Riots in the US, the LA riots, Rodney King, that was April. Ferguson riots was August. Baltimore riots was April. In other words, we get charged up when we're out in the sun. We're not rioting when it's cold. We're not out there when it's cold. Yeah? We're not out there when it's cold. So, if the melanin gets charged up by the sun, and everyone knows this but us, yeah? Obviously, scientists are going to do some research on it and try and take it and use it for other things, like, listen to this.
Now, melanin has the same kind of ring structures and so on, and it makes very complex structures, and not all melanins are the same, as we'll talk about in a minute. In fact, there's somebody even studying that and wondering whether energy is directly absorbed from the melanin in your skin and transformed into energy in your body. Okay? And they even think about could in the future, and they're developing this now, they're taking melanin and making batteries out of them that store energy from the sunlight directly. It might in fact become a future source of how we're going to generate energy.
What? So look, melanin-based biobattery may power ingestible diagnostics. They're going to make these batteries out of melanin, yeah? Ingestible batteries for people who have issues, like health issues. So this is the scientist, his name's Christopher Bettinger, yeah? Battery you can swallow could enable future ingestible medical devices. Non-toxic edible batteries could one day power ingestible devices, look, made with melanin for diagnosing and treating disease. One team reports new progress toward that goal with their batteries made with melanin pigments naturally found in the skin, hair, and eyes. So they're gonna make these batteries that they can give to someone like, okay, what are you suffering from? High blood pressure? Take this melanin battery 3 times a day, you'll be fine. Okay, what are you suffering from? High cholesterol, there you go. Type 2 diabetes, there you go. They're gonna give people these melanin batteries to charge them up. Where are they getting it from? Where are they getting it from? Where are they getting it from? Where are they getting all this melanin from? Yeah? That's why we need to understand this. You know who this is? Henrietta Lacks. So I'm not going to go through her story, but we understand that's where they're getting the melanin from. Henrietta Lacks. Our organs have melanin in it. They took this woman's cells and they're using her cells today. She died in 1951. Yeah? She died in 1951. And for people who don't believe this, like there's this book called Mummies, Cannibals and Vampires. And it basically details the history of medicine. Yeah? And medicine, like what we call medicine today, it all came from them taking the mummies out of the pyramids and doing research on them, getting the skulls and powdering up the skulls and then using the skull dust as medicine and all that sort of stuff. In other words, the medicine from today, it all came from this history of Europeans eating us. Eating us, yeah? Taking our organs, our tissues, our cells and using them for scientific research and eating us, yeah? To boost themselves.
They're doing it now. That's why when you see Prince Philip goes to the hospital, he's going for blood transfusion.
Exactly. All right. So, I just want to leave you with this. Why study black? No, because we've gone over now, but why study black? Just keep that in your mind. We haven't got time to go through this now. But why is studying blackness so important? Keep that in mind. We'll go over that next week, yeah? So, thanks for turning up today. That's class 1 out of the way. Any questions, let me know, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you.